be a Pathways Project moderating a panel session. And the moderator of today is none other than Toastmaster Louisa Chan. So Toastmaster Louisa Chan, so the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster of the Day, Sasi. Good day and welcome, everybody. Thank you for investing your time on this Monday afternoon with us. Today, we're going to be having a sizzling topic which I will be moderating. It is a serious topic that I have ruminated over this past 5 years since I've been a Toastmaster member. And I will tell you why in a short while. Before that, I'd like to introduce to you our panel, very exciting panel, whom I have immense respect for. Please hold your applause until I've introduced all three of them. First off, distinguished Toastmaster Mark McKenzie. He is a technical expert in the field of regulatory governance, specializing in developing regulatory and compliance policies and procedure. When he is not strategizing on financial stability and supervision, he is a busy president at KL Advanced Toastmasters Club. Distinguished Toastmaster Patricia Yap is the Toastmaster of the year 2019-2020 of District 51. And she was the first runner-up at the Table Topics contest in 2015-2016. And distinguished Toastmaster Albert Khor has visited more than, this is an astounding number, 130 clubs around the world. He is a marine engineer by profession at a government-linked corporation. He is the current president of Malaysia's oldest club, Toastmasters International Kuala Lumpur. Let's now give them a warm welcome, everybody. Before we go into the panel discussion, I want to take the temperature of the room by way of a poll question. So, Herlina, would you please launch the first poll?
Okay, wait.
So the poll question is, if Toastmasters meetings are open for members to practice speaking with finesse on sex, religion, and politics in the club without fear of reprisals, would you want to do it? I'd like to remind everybody that this poll, your responses will be confidential. Carolina, are we good to close the poll now?
We have 16 respondents.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll appreciate everybody's feedback. Okay, do we have, so what is the result, Herlina? Can you tell us?
Let's share the results now. Wait,
Yeah.
Can you see the results?
Okay, we have a yes. So this is the temperature right now in the room. And like I said just now, why has it been important? Why have I been ruminating over this? Well, for one thing, I feel that what is actually sex, religion, and politics when you dissect it? Sex is the relationship between you and love. I hope you saw that wink. Politics is the relationship between you and society. Religion is the relationship between you and spirituality. Together, these are love, peace, and happiness. These are the only things that people truly care about. Don't they sound familiar? We use them for greetings at festivals, at marriages. So now I ask our three panelists, should clubs align with TI's non-restriction of topics of sex, religion, and politics to raise the bar of its members in learning to speak with finesse and respect on such topics? I'd like to throw this first question to Mark McKenzie. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Louisa. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I think this is going to be an effing, a stoning discussion this afternoon. This will be a fascinating, fantastic discussion. Frankly, I don't believe Toastmasters prohibit us from speaking on any topics. I don't think these topics are forbidden. I consider these topics as controversial topics. And what are the essence of controversial topics? They can be filled with emotions, they can be polarizing, and obviously they can be filled with rhetoric. There are some examples that we have today that as Toastmasters, as leaders, as communicators, we should be confronted. We can't run away from them. Some examples: the plight of the Rohingya refugees, for example, the rights of LBGTs, child and early forced marriages, the rights of women. These are issues, if we're communicators and leaders, that we should be tackling. But what are the benefits of tackling these questions and these issues? We help to build awareness, we provide insight and information, and we help to establish ourselves as expertise in these fields. But there are pitfalls and there are dangers around these topics because they are polarizing. And in Toastmasters, we say we build an inclusive and supportive environment. So we have to be diligent with how we approach these topics. We have to be very well prepared. We have to be thoughtful and we have to be respectful. And I think Toastmasters recognize this, that we present a very good opportunity to learn from each other what we do. So what should we do if we have to speak about these topics? I'll end here. We must have credibility. We must be unbiased, and we must be aware of all the sides. Thank you very much, Louisa.
Thank you very much, DTM Mark McKenzie. I heard what you said, that these topics, they relate to us in our everyday lives. Women, refugees, and yes, they are controversial. So based on what you have said, let's now hear what our next speaker, Patricia Yap, has to say on this topic. Over to you, Pat.
Wow, this is a time whereby I get to make a stand, but I'm going to take a very safe stand whereby I'm going to stay neutral. I do resonate with everything Mark has just mentioned. And let me share with you why I have decided to take a safe stand to stay neutral. Giving you a little bit of my background, I actually was born in Canada and then I came back to Malaysia to study. So I was kind of being educated in the Western and also the Asian culture. So when I became a Toastmaster, all these values and my experiences mold me the way I am now. And why I have decided to take a neutral stand, simply because I feel the cultural part of each club in Toastmasters are quite different. Some of the clubs that we have visited overseas, they are really liberal on the topics, even speech topics and all that. I've been to a club whereby the project speeches were really religious topics, which will not be encouraged in a club like in Malaysia, whereby we embrace diversity in a different context. And because of that, my question is always whether the leaders of the club, the EXCO members, whether they are mature enough to handle some of the topics such as sex, religion, politics. All these topics can be rather sensitive if they weren't able to handle it with care. And that's where Mark's valuable message came in. I feel part of us Toastmasters, we really need to continuously open up our minds to the world, have a little bit of a conversation between the leaders here so that we can contribute overall to the intellectual part of our society. And hopefully we are able to really make an impact. For instance, some of us eventually may want to take a more dominant role in this arena of politics, religion, and that's where we're able to influence our society to be more advanced, more inclusive. And that, I feel, will bring goodness to our humanity, no matter where we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Patricia Yap, distinguished Toastmaster. I hear what you say about club culture and influence and maturity. And with time permitting later, I'd like to take you up. I'd like to ask you to explain a little bit more about it. So let us now move to our third panelist, Albert Khor. Over to you, Albert.
Thank you, moderator Louisa. My take on this is to actually revisit the topic for today. There are a few keywords which I feel we need to dissect before we answer that question in its totality. The two keywords I want to highlight here is firstly the word align. Align with TI's non-restriction. Should clubs align with any of the TI's policy? Absolutely. We are all chartered Toastmasters clubs, and unless there's any strong reason or if it's allowed in the constitution, we must align with TI's policy. And having said that, it is important to revisit what TI's policy actually is. TI's policy means that there is no restriction in terms of subject matter. Sex, politics, and religion are not prohibited topics as per the Toastmasters International. However, they have to be tackled with respect and inclusivity. So this is a carefully worded position of Toastmasters International, which I think should be taken into consideration as well. Now, the other word here is raise the bar. So raise the bar in the topic. I think this implies that being able to speak on topics related to sex, politics, and religion confidently is being linked to raising the bar as a speaker. Is that necessarily true? I don't fully agree, because many of us, we join Toastmasters for different reasons. Some of us, we want to give a more confident presentation in the workplace. And some of us, we just want to be able to speak in public. So maybe starting with something less sensitive so that the speaker can build his confidence. And when he or she is ready, then maybe these topics can be included as well. The next thing is this, on something that the moderator herself has mentioned, the word personal. All these topics are very personal. So each of us, we have our own personal view to each and every area of these topics. Is Toastmasters the platform for us to communicate our personal views with regards to sex, politics, and religion? For me, I think it is a choice to make, but just one final statement I want to do before my conclusion is that I have visited 130 clubs, and that comes about almost 1% of all the clubs in the world. Astoundingly, in United States, where people are supposedly more open about these topics, I have very rarely, if any at all, come across such topics being mentioned in the club, even though the club has no restrictions on sex, politics, and religion. So this raised the question of whether this is actually a non-issue or is it something that we need to address. I leave this thought together with all of you. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Albert. That is a challenge indeed. I hear what you say about being objective, about whether Toastmasters is the right platform in order to raise the bar of the members. Let's, as what I've mentioned, if the time allows, I would like to come back to this point that you have made, Albert. So, as respect is one of the values of Toastmasters International, wouldn't sex, religion, and politics be effective for members to build this value? Okay, I say again, wouldn't sex, religion, and politics be effective for members to build this value, besides sharpening their opinions and ability to articulate their opinions and arguments, more importantly, for them to be able to train their, to be able to speak on certain topics, so that when the time is right, when there is that need for them to defend their opinions, to speak up for something with their member of parliament, for things to be done, I believe such skills would be very helpful. On that point, I would like to ask Pat, what are your thoughts on that point?
Wow, what a question, right? The only thought that I have is your question really allows me to really appreciate the core values of Toastmasters, which is IRSE, integrity, respect, service, and excellence. We really need to embrace the core value in order to have an intellectual conversation on this. Because I feel each and every one of us, we do hold on dearly to some of the thoughts that we have. And given time, we may have different conclusion. Let me share with you a very shocking cultural shock that I had very briefly. When I first went to Canada, it was my first exposure to different people, different culture. And people will actually hug each other, so show their affectionate feelings to one another on the street in a public places. And for me, that is totally not acceptable, because I came from a very conservative family. And that I thought was definitely a shock to my own values. But over time, I thought, hey, why are we rejecting the show of affection, right? Because human beings, we are here to connect, to show appreciation with one another. Why are we shameful of it? Of course, I'm saying collectively in general. I'm also doing comparison based on my own experience. And because of that, that sort of triggers me. So what is controversial to each and every one of you? What is true to you may not be true to another party. So end of the day, I seriously think it's really embracing respect, but it's beyond respect. Is to embrace the rights that each and every one of us, we don't have our own right to embrace what is true to us. But that is where a lot of things, a lot of trouble and a lot of conflict will start, because all of us hold dearly to our own political view, religious view, or our sexual view. So I guess that's where the difficulty in the conversation starts most of the time. And it really depends on how open the members are and how open the leaders are. With this, I'd like you to hold on to that thought and think about it. Thank you, Louisa. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you for your response. To Albert, I would like, because you are the president of the oldest club in Malaysia, so I would like to have your opinion on this. What will be the sign that members are ready to handle such topics which actually affect us in our daily lives? What will be the sign that members are ready to handle sex, religion, and politics topics?
Thank you, Louisa. I think that is an interesting question, because it sort of ties back to something that I've quite forgotten to do in my remarks just now, which is to mention that clubs do need to align with TI's non-restriction policy. That is a non-negotiable, in my opinion. So what will be the sign? Now we are bringing that from all the way up in the TI down to the club level. What will be the sign that the club is actually ready to implement it and not just follow it on paper? For me, it is something that the club needs to discuss among its existing members. And to do that, certain boundaries will still need to be set, because like it or not, freedom of speech does come with certain boundaries, especially if we want to avoid too much time handling difficult situations or squabbles between members, which will not contribute to the value of the club. So if a boundary could be set and is agreed with all the existing members and is communicated effectively to all the members who are coming into the society, then I would say that would be the time, that would be the moment that the club is now ready to handle such topics. People can share it, there will be disagreements, there are mechanisms to deal with those disagreements, and the mindset is set that there shall be no personal resentment, because everybody is just presenting and practicing their communication skills, and it should not be taken personally. So if such a mindset can be cultivated at the club level, put it on paper, black and white, and communicated effectively to all the future members, then Louisa, I would agree that that would be the time when the club can take on these topics.
Okay, we've heard from Albert and his take on it. And how about you, Mark? The last question, the same question for you before we end this discussion. What will be the sign that members are ready to handle as sex, religion, and politics?
I think there are a couple of things, Louisa. I think number one is to recognize that we are in a dynamic organization. And so what it means is that as a fraternity, Toastmasters International should in fact be evolving with our time. We're supposed to be democratic. So that's the first thing, is how we embrace democracy. The second bit is recognizing that when we speak of these topics in a public forum, we should never speak from a given personal opinions. We need to be authorities on these subjects. And we need to recognize that there are going to be people who will disagree with us. So I think that comes with maturity. And I think that's what we have to aim for. How do we evolve with times? How do we recognize the societal issues that we're dealing with so that we can address them from a public policy point of view when called upon as effective communicators and effective leaders in our society? And I think that's what we don't live in a bubble. Toastmasters is not a bubble. We live outside of Toastmasters. And if we are true communicators, let us grow up.
Thank you very much, Mark, for ending the panel discussion on that question. And we have already gone through the first poll. And now let's take the temperature again in the room. What do you say now that you have heard from our three panelists? So Helena, would you please launch the poll again, the post-discussion poll? So what I've heard today is that I believe, of course, just as what what Toastmasters International says about being respectful, I always believe that opinions are welcome with no personal attacks. And yes, definitely, we need to be always mindful of who is in our circle, who is present, and yet being able to speak your mind. Because otherwise, if you shy away from important issues, then how authentic are we? We always talk about authenticity. We talk about effective communication. Where are we when important issues matter? Herlina, how are we doing with that?
Yeah, I'm going to share this screen for the polls. Yeah.
Thank you. So if you have any questions for our panelists, audience, please would you throw them to Minpo? She will be compiling the questions.
So there are 13 that responded yes. This is an increase from before.
An increase from before. Thank you very much. So now we have heard from the room, and I am reminded that this is the opinion of the room. So it is not, however, because Area P has the most clubs in District 51, I would like to say that, and I would like to believe that this is representative of the maturity that we have at Division P. And of course, we also have very matured members. And as I also heard Pat talked about diversity, and Albert talked about evolution. We have actually evolved, I believe. And we need to not bang SRP straight off, but we need to introduce it with finesse. And I would like to now ask if we have any questions. Minpo?
So far, none from the floor. Please
Okay.
throw more questions. Yeah.
Louisa, if there are no questions, would you mind if I offer a couple of tips to tackle some of these issues?
Thank you. But we
Yeah.
will have 2 minutes to do. Actually, it's already 1:02. Can we do one tip from you? Your most important tip, please, Mark.
The first thing is, I think one of the benefits of these topics is we develop our persuasive speaking. So I think that's one. When we're confronted with these topics, we have to remain cool. We have to avoid the conflicts, and we have to keep it within our knowledge and our areas of expertise. Don't speak from giving opinions. It's best to be an authority on the subject.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. And I look forward to the time that we would be able to introduce SRP at Advanced Ardent Speakers Club. Thank you. And with that, I would like to say ribuan terima kasih to my 3 panelists and to you, my audience, for spending your time to listen in today. On that note, I hand over the control back to President Sasi, Toastmaster of the day. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you to the moderator, Toastmaster Louisa. Wow. I think today's panel session is just a proof for our theme of the day, right? So we discuss a topic which could potentially make us evolve, or show, like what Louisa said, to resemble ourselves as a more matured club or matured community.